Good morning, Wild and Well listeners. This is Becca and Jen here, and we are so glad that you are listening. This week, we are going through fear and courage and that intersectionality with them. Really talking about courage is not the absence of fear, but rather we want to give it the passenger seat to our life. And so recognizing the importance of fear and then saying, okay, now how do I slot you over by building out my bravery skills and everything there? So courage is not the absence of fear, but rather riding in the passenger seat. Before we get into the details of our relationship with fear and courage, what do you have for us for our unpopular opinions, Jen?
Yeah. So, unpopular opinion this week is hitting home for me because I'm about to go on a solo trip. But the unpopular opinion is solo trip is like one of the best ways to lean into your fear and courage both at the same time. And even though it feels a little uncomfortable, I think it's honestly one of the best ways to do it. That's my unpopular opinion. I know a lot of people don't like solo travel or like won't even entertain it. So I'm curious what you think.
Yes, drum roll. Brrr, surprise, although I have FOMO majorly, I actually like solo travel. I I was really nervous for it. And then when I graduated college, I went and lived abroad and I traveled abroad and I loved it. I will say there's something sacred about sharing it with family or friends, like close people, because then we can reminisce on it and build that rapport. However, from a growth perspective, from a get out of my comfort zone, from a experience what I want and try different things.
Mhm.
And I journaled a ton. So there's a lot of pieces for me that hold true. And I met people from all over the world. Whereas when I'm with friends or family, I'm less outwardly social, I think. So I'd actually
Yeah.
say solo travel in doses is so good, like you just said.
Yeah.
How are you feeling about your trip being solo?
I always, without hesitation, whenever I'm going, especially in an international solo trip,
Sure.
I should clarify. But solo travel could look any which way. It could be a road trip. I've never done a solo road trip. I think that would be a fun idea. Or even, yeah, domestic travel of any distance or any kind, solo trip. I'm going to Europe where I don't really go ever. I've only been once. And yeah, I always, whenever these kinds of things approach, I'm always like, can I do this? Do I know how to do this? Am I going to be fine? And I always have a little bit of self doubt. And I'm like, you're going to do it anyway. You're going to do it anyway. And you're going to be just fine. It's like I have two versions, like two things talking, sort of like the angel and the devil that they're really debating on like the days when I'm leading up to leaving.
Okay. I'm with you. I think and this gets into fear and courage today. One hard pass for me is solo camping. I have 0 desire to go into the
Oh,
woods.
yeah.
My fear automatically is like, you're gonna get eaten by a bear, you're gonna get lost, you're gonna get frostbitten, or any of the above and more. Mosquito bites, malaria. Malaria doesn't even exist in the US, and I fear that, right? Like,
Right.
whatever it might be. So a hard pass for me on solo travel is camping.
Okay, alright, that's fair. I think I might be with you on that.
Something for us to dig into. Where are our limits? Where do our fear exists? But
Yeah.
thinking about fear, then recognizing it and giving its place, not making it a villain, but I really want us to think about it as protection. We need fear. It is something that allows us to take a pulse on what's happening and to say, okay, what's coming up inside me? Is this a go? Is it a no? What do I do with it? So really understanding it could be careful or don't get hurt or stay where it's predictable. Those are all healthy things, right? Like whether for our heart or our head or our physicality. Another question is, what if this goes wrong, right? Like even when
Right,
you and I talk about solo traveling, we're females. There are
right.
places in the world where I had different experiences being female than I did being in groups. So
Yeah,
being solo versus being in groups, that looked different. And even in one place where it's more predominantly male, leaders and just involved, we partnered up. My girlfriend and I, we were traveling, we weren't solo, but the two of us were. And we met two Italian guys that happened to be there as well. They were a gay couple. Didn't matter. Once we linked in with them, the four of us traveled, and the way in which men specifically and people around the world, or like in this particular place, engaged with us was so much safer. So I share that of like, there are very real realities of how different people engage. And I saw an amazing time in this country. And I'm not sharing the name because I don't want people to say, oh, it's bad or it's whatever. It just is different culturally. And so recognizing that there's reasons for us to say, hey, how do I handle this? What do I do? Let's be responsible. So those would be some of the fear things there, but
yeah.
not making it a villain. What are your thoughts on travel or let's say public speaking? That's another one for people. Where does fear show up in your life, Jen?
Definitely on public speaking for me.
Okay.
And I usually just like start talking really fast. I get really flushed and then I get embarrassed. Oh my gosh, everybody's looking at me. My cheeks are red. Oh my gosh, everybody knows I'm sweating. Ah, and then I just, I'm like, you got to do it anyway. Like you can't get out of it. You got to say what you need to say. You're responsible for this presentation or whatever it is. I would say also for me, I'm in this season where I'm trying to make the very personal decision of whether or not I want kids or not. My husband and I are. And it definitely shows up there. Like in the, oh, well, what would my kids do? What would they be safe? Would I be a good mom? Would I be, And so I think that that's a little bit of anxiety and it's fear
Mhm.
of like fear that something might go wrong. Which, if I was being really honest, or all of you parents out there who are listening, you're probably thinking, like, yeah, stuff is gonna go wrong, sister, you know? So
Yeah.
it's like that fear can slow me down mentally I have to almost like box it because, like you said, it's like it serves a purpose and it's helpful to a degree if I can almost like boundary it. But if I can't boundary it and then it just like consumes me, then I don't think it's helpful at that point.
Yeah.
It's almost like get your lasso out, go lasso that fear and pull it in, you know? That's the visual that's coming to my mind.
Absolutely. And that's where courage comes in then is that relational piece to say, these are all true. I am nervous that something is dangerous or uncomfortable. And also, I'm gonna go do it. Or, okay, I'm open to the journey. Or I believe in myself that I can get through this. For those of us that have experienced deep grief or pain or whatnot, we know that we can move through some of the hardest days that prior to going through those. And it doesn't mean I would choose to go through those on my own. But prior to going through those, I would have said, I don't think I'd make it.
Yeah,
And now that I'm through those and on the other side, I'm like, oh, I didn't like that. And yet I'm capable. And yet friends showed up and family showed up. And yet I cried my way through it or whatever it is, right? It doesn't mean that it's comfortable, but we realize it's almost one step in front of the other that, oh, I've learned how to run instead of just walk, or I've learned how to
yeah,
walk instead of just crawl, right?
right.
Some of those things. And so you sharing that, whether it be having children or public speaking, talk about having children, you saying all those things. I'm like, welcome to motherhood. You're already a mother. Not that like, because some things do go wrong, right? They just do. Other things it's like, man, I worried about that, and my fear turned into worry because I ruminated, or my fear met
Mm.
anxiety because I didn't put that boundary around it. So rather than saying, "Oh, I'm either gonna take this captive and not think about it, or I'm gonna think about it differently," and we'll get into some
Mhm.
of those strategies, I sat in it and I let it consume me, and then I worried, would Marcus ever be able to speak? Or right? Or is he gonna walk because he was 3 months behind everyone else? And homeboy's running, climbing on things, like, loves to rock climb, so we are just fine, but in those moments, they feel very real as a mother, or so many other things that we could go down that road for parenthood. And so what are those fears, right? For
Right.
listeners, for us as parents, for us as aunties and siblings and those relational pieces too. So just some of the things as we move then into courage, where I hear is this matters more than the comfort. That is something I can say, like solo
Mm.
traveling, getting to go and live in Guatemala, so worth it. I'm not gonna like some of the food. I know that.
Yeah,
I'm gonna sleep in new beds. I don't know what they're gonna be like. I'm going to not have the creature comforts that I have here. I'm going to experience better things than I ever have. I may
yeah,
fall in love, and that feels even more uncomfortable because what does that mean, in another country, right? Those things were questions of the past where I'm like, okay, can I move through the discomfort and trust
right.
that whatever that experience is going to be is worth it.
Uh-huh.
And then the flip side of that is I can survive discomfort then. So knowing that again. And then the last piece that I would say as like a grounding thing for me is what if this grows me? What if this actually is the better adventure of life? Like choose your own
Mhm.
adventure. I go A or B. A says take a seat because it could be really scary. B says might be scary, but let's go. Right. And so it becomes which one do I want to take in that choose your own adventure? And so again, travel does that in a beautiful way and teaches us how to flex that. What's coming up for you?
Uh What's coming up for me is I sort of have this habit of honestly like doing this quite a lot and then sort of dealing with my fear later. and, like, I'll just commit to things that feel scary to me. I'm not sure where it comes from. I grew up studying astrology with my grandmother, and there's this one sign that, like, I have pretty strongly in my chart, and the sign is all about, like, you just take action, you just go, you just do it, you just do it, and I feel like I have noticed that as a theme throughout my life where I have looked at things and felt like, yeah, that is scary, or that feels big, or that is gonna be uncomfortable. I'm not gonna like that. And I know that for whatever reason, I'm gonna do it anyway. Um, it's almost like an investment. Like I know that it's gonna pay off, or like I know that it will turn out to be something that is valuable to me or other people around me.
How fun to reflect and know that. I'm not sure I've reflected on where am I on that spectrum of, like, all to the wall, like, go do it, or, hey, let's sit back and be on the sidelines and observe. There's nothing wrong with either of those, but again, because then that means that you're probably teaching many of us how to just go for it, and it's like, "Oh, if I feel nervous about this or if I fear this, I need Jen as a friend because she's gonna be like, 'Beck, let's just go.'" Right? And simultaneously, when we're out and about, I might be like, "Hey,
Might wanna think about that one.
is that the right decision or the
Yeah.
best decision? Yeah, let's think about it, right? So those might be great things to have. I mean, as I think about that, I'm more towards your side than my sister, for example, and she was on here many weeks ago for Fan Friday, and I'm grateful that she was more cautious and more observant than I was because I would have been more reckless if I didn't get to that place
Right,
because of having her.
right.
So I do think there's that fun dance, but let's say when we go skiing or when we go and do stuff, she's like Beck's down for a good time, and so she'll know that I will pull her out of and into the adventure or the spontaneity a little bit
Yeah.
more too. So I think there is that fun dance, and it gets into, especially when we move through courage, the importance of having community and saying, "Okay, I'm not alone," one, which
Yeah.
that in its own is a fear, right? That's I'd say maybe our greatest fear is humanity. And so learning I'm not alone and therefore I can go do things or I have people to come alongside me. And sometimes
Yeah.
that might be in our own house even that we feel that way or whatnot. And so just saying I'm not alone. I can meet people, there's support, there's hope, all those things. So and then there's fun to people to get down and clown with, right? And so just thinking about that from the positive all the way through grief and how do we partner with people. And I think that what you just highlighted is a beautiful thing of friendship or connection or that relational piece of courage that says, girl, we're gonna go do it, right? Or you
Yeah.
saying, come on back, like, don't think, let's go.
Yeah. Can you think of a time recently where you did something that felt scary or incited fear to you in some way, big or small, that you did anyway?
Wild and Well Together podcast. I mean, we'll call it what it is. So, for all of you listening, thank you. I have been humbled to the max. I see people now that are my parents' age. I see people now that are teenagers. I just ran into a lady. Unfortunately, a dog was running down the street. And so, one of our neighbors, she's, I'm guessing, mid 50s, maybe 60s. She was, shout out, because if you're listening to this, you're beautiful as you are. She was like, "Hey, do you know whose dog this is?" And I said, "I don't." And then she goes, "Thank you for your team and you putting out what you're saying. We need that. I need that." And that was it. That's all she said. And I was like, oh my gosh, you know the little emoji that has like the stars twinkling, like inside? I felt that way. I felt that way of like deep satisfaction of, hey, I don't know what's going to come of this, but I know that we are reaching people's hearts. And when I thought about this a year ago, March is when I started thinking and contemplating leaving the industry I was in and starting an entrepreneurial position. And then when I sent you the email, I was so nervous and saying, can we talk? And then I did it to John. And then I did it to, and we just have continued one foot in front of the other. So that's
Yeah.
very macro, but it's very important to this. Please hear me say, for those of you listening, if you feel the call to have a podcast or to start your own company or to go travel or to show up at work, whatever it is, it doesn't matter. Do it.
Mhm.
Go for it. Like Jen says, just try it.
Yeah.
I've learned that one of my biggest fears growing up, and it led to perfection and it led to me missing out on some things, and it led to me not getting out of some things I needed to, was my fear of the outcome. I
Mhm.
wanted so much control on the outcome that then I either became a perfectionist or didn't engage because I knew I wasn't good at it or that it wasn't going to lead to what I wanted. And I'm much more, for better for worse, I'm more type B because of learning to be and like kind of releasing. And sometimes Lord knows people in my life would love for me to be type A, and that's okay. But is saying I've learned to enjoy the journey more than the outcome as a practical tool for me to release some of my fear about the outcome.
That's deep. That's deep.
I mean, it's a reality. It's probably way too deep sometimes, but my analytical brain goes there of like, if I'm really honest with myself, it was the fear of the outcome.
Mm. Mhm.
Being a failure, maybe, but I don't think it was that. I think maybe it was that, and I need to dig into it deeper, but it was, what if this isn't how I want it to be?
Yeah.
What if it's not what I dreamed about? And those what ifs play, and that's where anxiety comes in, right? Anxiety is tied to what ifs. And so then our mind starts to ruminate and we become, what if this? What if that? Whereas fear is saying, I am potentially at risk, or I am at risk of survival. Like, will I survive or not? And so it becomes this actual clear statement, whereas anxiety is the mind ruminating and the feelings then enabling that or pushing against it. Whereas then courage says, with both of those things being true,
Mhm.
how do I still step into it? How do you still go talk on stage? How do you still travel? How do you still decide and have those courageous conversations with your hubby to say, all right, we're doing this, or maybe we're not, but wherever you are in your journey, right? Like for parenthood, even of like, okay, the fact that I'm even thinking about it, am I okay that I'm thinking about it? Right? Like even some of those giving permission there. So starting small with that micro courage is like our nervous system needs repetition. So over and over again, I'm scared of the outcome. Therefore, I'm going to put myself in ways for the journey. A micro one would be, we head to, um, on a trip as a family. Every February, we go on a family. So by the time people listen to this, we'll have gotten back. But we're on a trip. And when the ocean's involved, micro wise, I am nervous of the ocean. I like to say I have a healthy respect for the animals underneath. I'll call it what it is. It's a fear, full fear. And so on a micro level, I'm the last person to get in, and I will. And I will be brave and put on a brave face. But my mind wanders to what little critters are wanting to come say hi.
Yeah.
That's like another micro. Yes, macro, that would be doing the podcast and actually stepping into it and saying it's worth leaving what I was at. And then micro would be going to the ocean. And yeah. What about for you, though? What's a fear that you move through or that you've chosen to step into?
I think if a fear that comes up for me often is like fear of how I'll be received or how other people will view me.
Oh,
That's a big one. A recent one for me is I took a short form content class, and the whole thing about this class is that they want you to like get out of your own way, and you're supposed to post like every other day as part of this course. And there's a lot of things in this course where you're supposed to like really expose yourself. That's how I see it, because I don't get my phone out and yap on camera and post it to the internet. And
yeah.
and yapping means, for those of you who don't know, this was new to me, just like talking at the camera, just like having a conversation with the camera basically. And this type of content is really growing out there on social media. And so I was just like, me? You want me to do that? I'm not doing that. And I really had, because I was afraid that people were gonna be like, "Oh my gosh, her content is so cheesy. She's so lame. She
Yeah.
sounds like this when she talk." You know what I mean? And I was just like, "You're gonna do it. You're gonna do it anyway." And the reception so far has been great. It's been positive. God forbid it go well. And I think that is almost like can be an invitation or like a moment stopper when fear or anxiety is growing, 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 and you don't have a way to interrupt
Yeah.
that cycle. It's almost, now I'm wondering, I'm like, when the fear is coming up or when the anxiety is coming up, why don't I just stop myself and say, what if this were to go well, actually? What does that do?
Yes. Separate the uncomfortable from the unsafe. Is this dangerous or is this just stretching me? Or am I gonna fall on my face or am I actually gonna succeed? Right? Or something like that. There's a Buddhist, I don't know who it is, but a group of Buddhist monks, they have a saying that is, if I'm gonna let myself ruminate, why wouldn't I ruminate on all the great things that could happen?
Mic drop,
We
literally.
we as millennials right now, I'm gonna speak as in the general and then in my own life, have to combat, here's a laundry list of 15 things that suck right now.
Yeah.
Every time I do that, I need to have a laundry list of 15 to 25 of here are things that I'm crushing or that my friends are doing for me or that I'm seeing in this life. Because those are true too. Those are
Yep.
also true too. And it doesn't, again, same with fear. It doesn't negate the fear and it doesn't negate
Mm-mm.
the hard things in life. But it also says, what's up? Look at these things. And it reminds us. And so, yeah, thanks to the monks who can remind us good things when we can't, when we're too distracted by other things. So, really getting into that space of interrupting our brain to say, oh, wait, could I actually thrive? Could this be the thing? And why not? Why not? What do we learn in that? One micro hack for that when we do feel fear or anxiety spiraling or whatnot is to
Mhm.
regulate first, then act second. And so as a reminder, coming back to our breath, I'll always go into that, or cold water, something like tactile or temperature based that can automatically switch our brain, or then grounding, finding ourselves back in this space of safety because our brain ultimately we need to do that. Amygdala, everything going off right now of like fight or flight, fight or flight, fight or flight of like oh, okay, I am safe. Now that I know
Yeah.
I'm safe, yeah, let's go crush it. Or even if I'm shaking because I'm nervous, I'm still safe. So let me now process that and do something. So when the body settles, then bravery becomes accessible. And that's just important to remind ourselves of if I'm feeling fearful about something, I have to come into the grounding before I can go into the problem solving.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, and then the last one that I've really held on to is I guess there could be 2 more in this, but is, again, not flexing courage by winning as my, rote memorization for every win I have or every outcome I have, that reminds me of how courageous I am or how strong or how brave I am, and instead saying, "We flex our courage muscle by showing up." And it's that one repetition after another, after another. You getting on the plane to go on your international trip, you taking that class, you posting every other day, you having those hard conversations with your hubby or with yourself to saying, "Am I a mother? Am I not? Am I okay with the response that my body's telling me right now?" Right? Like all those things are real in my own life. Am I okay to be vulnerable and have these conversations? Am I willing to put away the outcome to say, "Hey, let's see where the journey takes us. Let's ride." Right? Like some of those things, those become that of like one step in front of the other.
Yeah, that outcome piece I think is so important of what you're saying, and as you were just saying that, it reminded me of if anyone has been keeping up with the Winter Olympics,
Mm.
Lindsey Vonn, in her
Yes.
40s, just complete boss out there going for it, gets injured in training, like, days before she's supposed to compete. I think she, like, tore her ACL for, like, the 5th time or something. I'm not gonna get it exactly right, but it was a pretty serious injury that she had on the mountain, like, 3 days literally before she was supposed to race, and she was like, "I'm doing it anyway," and she then races, and the race goes horribly. She crashes in the race, and so many people were giving her crap online that she
Yeah.
was too risky or that, like, it wasn't smart. "Why would you do that?" And I saw Adam Grant chime in and say something, "For all of you Lindsey Vonn critics out there on the couch, why don't you like the courage that she displayed and the grit that she displayed is not measured by the outcome. Period. End of statement. It's measured by, like, her decision and, like, her ability or choice to show up, etcetera." And anyways, that as you were just saying that, I was like I saw that, like, bold on my social media feed, and I was like, "Yeah, that's a screenshot. That's good."
Again, mic drop, right? How can I complain about someone when I'm not even in the game, when I'm not even in the race?
Yeah.
Again, mad kudos to her.
Or doubt the courage that it took for her to say, like, "I'm injured and I'm still gonna do it."
Yeah, what I have to say to that is, hey, you still have a seat at the table for all those haters, but guess what? You're gonna learn today from your aunties and uncles,
Yeah, yeah,
right? It's gonna be one of those moments where, yeah, those people who chose to take a swing at her, like, sit down, take a seat at the table,
yeah.
and listen. And listen, because guess what? She got out there and did that. And I read what I read is that she said something along the lines of those 5 inches, 5 inches is what it takes to be a gold medalist or have a surgery. 5 inches. And she said, I'm worth those 5 inches. I'm worth going for it to see what I can do. And so for me, you are a role model for all of us
Yeah.
to say whether or not I succeed or have a surgery, I'm a winner. I'm showing up.
Yes. Yeah.
So good. What are your thoughts so she changed a mentality statement for people. You get
Mhm.
into this with another lady that you follow. What are your thoughts on and your stories with changing mentality and what that looks like?
Yeah, I referenced Dr. Allison Wood Brooks last episode, and this is her again. But I don't know if this is her exact study or if she was just referencing this study. But she talks about there was a study done with two groups of participants, and they were both tasked with doing sort of fear or anxiety inducing tasks like public speaking, impromptu, karaoke, impromptu, and they were split in two groups, and before the task one group was told to reframe their anxiety and their fear and instead say I'm excited or I'm calm, and the other group was just sort of stuck with their fear and anxiety and that loop of like personal and internal rhetoric. And in the study they found that those people in the first group who reframed their fear, their nerves as excitement, felt more excited, were rated as more persuasive, confident, and competent in their speeches and in the karaoke songs that they sang. So I thought that was really telling just from it's a reframe. It's also trying to like convince yourself or just have that other voice, on the side of your head go, no, this could be exciting. This could go well. I am calm. I can be calm. I can be excited.
I did prep. I do know my stuff. I am worthy of this space, as we've talked about in other ones. And then they did it. To me, as you were sharing that, I was like, that that almost makes fake it till you make it trite or a higher level, more surface level, and the
Mhm.
depth of it is actually, yeah, it may appear that we have to fake it till we make it, but actually what we're doing is we're rewriting our script. We're telling ourselves, "Oh, wait, emotions, nope, you have a say, you're an indicator that something's happening, so my fear, okay, something might happen, rejection," which again, to our body systems, psychologically feels like we're failure to society and survival. But nonetheless, it says, "Hey, I'm fearing rejection, I'm fearing whatever." But actually that fear, like, take a seat, we just talked about with Lindsey Vonn and those haters, like, take a seat for a moment, you still matter. But actually in this case, excitement, jump up, like, let's go do it, let's go. And it says, excitement, I actually have control over you. And we start to say our emotions, we as humans have control over our emotions as opposed to our emotions having control over us. And then we go do the thing. So it doesn't ignore them. It says, hey, thank you. And I'll check in with you later. Or you'll rear your head when you do, and I'll say hi to you. And then we put them back in their place. So that's beautiful. That's really, really resonating with me of how do I reframe my emotional state and give myself permission to have something that is more of a stronghold or more of a foothold to say, I can go do this. So excitement might be one, hope might be one, joy, preparedness, right? There's different things like that that could come up to say grit, right? Like, let's go grit. Like, I need you. I need you bad right. And so, but again, acknowledging the other ones and saying not today or not right now for those emotions.
Yeah.
Beautiful. I love, what is her name? Just so I can put it in my head.
It's Dr. Allison Wood Brooks.
Woodbrooks. Cool.
Yeah. Yeah, it almost I think about like I'm thinking of this almost like as a bridge, and there's like one destination on one side of the bridge, one destination on the other side. It's like fear is on one side of the bridge, courage is on the other side of the bridge. And I think that reframe is the bridge. Because it's like courage to some people may just be wired to just be like, I'm going to do it anyway. And other people may be like, I am not wired like that. I need some sort of input or reformation or mashup of this fear over here before I can even get close to coming to the other side of the bridge, which is I think where that reframe really can come into play and help you arrive to a point of courage before or just expecting yourself to be like, nope, I just switched on to courage and I'm just going to do it and I'm courageous and I'm going to go. You may need
Yeah.
some people may need a little bit of thinking about that before arriving at the doing.
Yeah, those micro steps to get us there and those supports to get
Mhm.
us there. Because again, how do we go from sitting on the couch to running a marathon, right? It takes those supports and different things. That's powerful. I can visualize that as well. So, Jen, thank you. For a recap, fear is not a flaw. It's your brain trying to protect you. Sometimes your body reacts to a hard conversation the same way it would real danger. And that doesn't mean you're weak. It means you care. Courage isn't the absence of this fear. It's choosing to align action while fear rides in the passenger seat. Around here, we don't wait to feel fearless. We move through fear gently, forward, and together. You're capable of more than your fear have you to believe. Please hear that from us. We want you to know that we are learning, as you heard, we are vulnerable. We are learning too alongside you, and we want you to have the space to learn. We want you to step into whatever your greatest pursuits are. It doesn't mean you leave fear behind. It says, come on, fear. You're with me. You're going to serve me well in certain places. And also courage, joy, hope, all these other things. I need you to stand up and help me because I need that here. So that is a recap of it with the micro and macro steps to get there. What about our journal prompt for the week, Jen?
Yes, our journal prompt for the week is there anything in my life I am actually afraid will happen right now? And what am I simply imagining might happen? What parts feel like fear? And how could I frame this, if at all?
Beautiful. Thank you for that.
Yeah,
Something for me to reflect on too.
same.
So I appreciate you tons. Have a wonderful time on your trip. And to the listeners, whether you're going on a trip, whether you're at home, step into whatever you need to. Know that you're not alone. We love you dearly. We are grateful for you. This is another episode of Her Huddles, Fear and Courage. We look forward to seeing you next time. Happy Monday.
See you all.